So on December 15th, 1973, the Temple Owls basketball team went to visit the Tennessee Vols in a game of two good college basketball teams. Fans come to see this game. Unknowingly, they were about to witness arguably the worst college basketball game ever played. With a final score of 11-6, Tennessee did get the win, but they had to be part of history of the lowest scoring game that very well changed NCAA basketball forever. Join us today as we dive into this terrible game and how it happened today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide, because I would be ecstatic if I could score 11 points in a basketball game. So let's go back to the 1970s. Basketball, especially college basketball, was growing. It was getting more popular, but it was still very regionalized. Fans were really fans of the local teams. You didn't have Duke, North Carolina, Florida, UConn, all these power basketball schools that have fans across the country. You didn't really have that. You rooted for your local team because not all basketball was played on TV. Maybe see the national championship, maybe some tournament games, but it was really regionalized. So fans were regionalized, which created local rivalries and gave you very good home court advantages because the fans wanted to come see you because they couldn't probably see you on TV. Now, this would all change at the end of the decade when Larry Bird and Magic Johnson played the most viewed game in college basketball history with their national championship against Michigan State and Indiana State. But we were still years away from that in 1973 when the Temple Owls came to visit Tennessee. Now, up to this point, neither one was a major basketball winner, although Temple actually had a little bit more success as they won the NIT in 1938 and 1969, as well as winning conference championships multiple times. And in 1973, they were led by Don Casey, and they were starting the season pretty good. They were 3-1 and really were looking to take on Tennessee because they were a strong competitor, a bigger school at the time, and they were a defensive specialist team, using this as a big strength for their team, and this would come into play for this game. Now, Tennessee was a pretty good team as well. Now, they've never won any after-season title, but they have won multiple conference titles throughout the years and been pretty good up until this point in the SEC conference. Now, they were led by Ray Myers, and they were a bigger team. See, the tallest player on Temple's basketball team was 6'10". There was only one player, and he was the only player above 6'7" on their team. Now, this was common back in the day. Mainly, people weren't as tall. We've gotten taller as a society, but they were still pretty good, and they were well-rounded. Their starting five that averaged over 10 points a game. But the Tennessee Vols were a much bigger team with more resources. They had two guys that stood over 6'9", and one was a 7-footer, which was a big deal at the time. And they had a three-headed monster led by freshman Ernie Gunfeld, who averaged over 17 points a game this season and would eventually go on to join the NBA. And their center, who was a 7-footer, Lynn Kamowski, would average 16 points a game and almost 10 rebounds, really helped anchor their defense as well. So because of this height advantage that Tennessee had and their offensive firepower that they had, Temple and their coach, Don Casey, really put a new strategy into this game. So on December 15th, 1973, at Tennessee Stokely Athletic Center, Tennessee brought in a full crowd, over 11,000 fans, eager to see a competitive basketball game against two good teams. That is exactly what they did not see. See, in the first half, Don kind of got scared or had this strategy that you've probably seen in the movie Hoosiers. I call it the Hoosier strategy, and it's the worst strategy if you want to watch a game. It worked great in the movie Hoosiers for that small Milan school to win the championship, but it's terrible to watch as a fan, and it's holding the ball. Back then, at this time, the NBA did have a shot clock, but the NCAA did not have a shot clock, mainly because they have way more games and the technical difficulties to get this at every single stadium and get it to match up is very challenging, and so they didn't have it yet. So you could hold the ball as long as you wanted, as long as you were moving the ball around. And that's what they did. With about 11 minutes and 44 seconds left in the first half, Don instructed his team to implement the stall, holding the ball for stretches, having two players pass the ball back and forth at the top of the key. Now, this was a legal tactic, but very boring to watch. Nothing was really happening. And Tennessee responded by playing a zone, effectively limiting Temple's scoring chances as it kept their big center in the lane, so they had to shoot jump shots if they wanted to really have a chance, and they didn't really want to do that either. It was so bad that at the end of the first half, the score was 7-5. Now, scoring was not as high back then, but the average was 30 to 40 points in a half. On the low end, you might be around 20, but this was abnormal. And what's crazy is the teams didn't change their strategy in the second half. You would think you'd try something different, even if you were Tennessee trying to make Temple do anything, forcefully foul, do something different, and they did not. In fact, they only scored 4 points in the second half. But it worked out because Temple scored 1 point. It was a crazy low scoring game. In fact, in the second half, neither team even scored a field goal. I just imagine a fan being there and falling asleep. Nothing was happening. How many of us cheer for free throws? That's not what we want to see. We want to see the fast breaks. We want to see maybe dunks or crazy shots or great passes for great layups or what. It doesn't even have to be crazy. Just a regular shot go in and we could be excited. And it didn't happen. In fact, Temple held the ball for 32 of the 40 minutes of the game. Temple's coach Don Casey said it was uncharted territory trying the strategy, as it was experimental, trying to secure a win. And it didn't even work. Tennessee's coach Ray Mears said the team maintained their defensive zones, but it negated any breaks in the game, and it made the score very, very low. Now, this was the lowest scoring game in NCAA basketball history since 1938, when they were still learning how to play basketball. There was no entertainment value. Fans were not excited by this. It was an awful show for basketball. And the crazy thing is, both these teams ended up with a good season. The Temple Owls finished 16-9, finished third in their conference, while the Tennessee Vols finished 17-9 with an average of 72 points a game, and Temple averaged 60 points a game. So this game was just a crazy monopoly trying something out that ended up being just awful. And what's even crazier, even though this game is looked at as a game that changed and led to them getting the shot clock, sadly, it wasn't till 1985 when they actually adopted the shot clock, which is absolutely crazy. 12 years later, they finally adopted the shot clock. Now, this was used as an example, but it was still terrible. This is the score of a Little League basketball game, not teams that feature players that would go on to the NBA, that had practice for years, that would have winning records on a season. But sometimes you gotta have a strategy. And the crazy thing is, they didn't play each other again until 2007, which is crazy to think about. And Temple was able to win that one. But this game left so much bad blood between these two teams that they're like, we're not going to play each other again for a long time. And these bad games did happen from time to time because of there being no shot clock and the stalling tactics. Now, the shot clock saved the NBA. And you could say it kind of saved college basketball too. Could you imagine going to a game today where teams did not even try to shoot? You would turn that game off or walk out immediately because nobody wants to see that. I want to thank you for listening to today's Daily Sports History. If you like this, please like and subscribe wherever you're at. That way you do not miss a thing. We'll see you on the next one.